Thank you very much. And so my name is Leslie Shannon, as has been established, and I am Nokia's head of ecosystem and trend scouting, located in Silicon Valley in California. And my job within Nokia is to look specifically at new innovations that are coming from industries outside the world of telecommunications. So what are the things that other industries are doing that will need some kind of connectivity that our industry needs to be aware of so we can build the right networks for those industries? That's the question that I try to address in my research. And so one of the things that I'm looking at right now that is the most useful and has the most relevance for us is the question of 5G, and 5G being able to do something that I call splitting the chip. And so let me explain what that is. Right now, well, first of all, technology only becomes successful and popular if it solves a problem, right? So like, for example, 3D TV really never took off. That was just about the technology. I don't really see what problem 3D solved, and neither did anybody else. But a problem that exists right now is if we look at the computing devices that we have around us, you know, our smartphones, our laptops, our gaming consoles, they have unbelievably gigantic amounts of processing power in them. But, and that's down to these chips, the silicon chips that they have in them. However, there's also some new problems that have been brought about by this wonderful technology. Especially, the chips and the devices are expensive, they generate a lot of heat, and the battery doesn't last very long. And these are three very real problems that we all know what I'm talking about. And there's many industries that those problems actually stand in the way of them developing their next phase of innovation. And the industries that are most particularly affected by this are drones and robotics, virtual and augmented reality wireless headsets that people would actually want to wear, visual analytics, and cloud gaming. These are very different industries from each other, but all of them wrestle with the problem of the big, hot, expensive chip. And this is where 5G comes in, because all of these industries are looking for 5G to do what I call, as I said, splitting the chip. So in other words, you use 5G to connect these end devices to servers that are located in the network, so you've got even more computer processing than you did on a little chip in a device. But on the device itself is only the smallest, tiniest chip possible with the minimum amount of processing. That gives you an end device that is cheaper, it doesn't generate a lot of heat, it doesn't generate a lot of radio, and it costs, I said cheaper already, battery life. It's the battery life lasts all day. Now, part of the, and okay, now you might be saying to yourself, she's describing edge computing. And yes, I am describing edge computing. However, the reason I'm coming at it the way that I just did is that this is how these external industries are seeing 5G. And this is what they care about 5G for, and what they're waiting for 5G for. And the reason we haven't seen a lot of use cases yet with this split chip scenario is that the chip splitting is still being done in the R&D labs around the world. So Nokia Bell Labs, we're working on this problem, solving this problem, I should say. Qualcomm is out there very publicly also working on this. So determining when you split the chip like this, what processes have to stay on the end device, what can go into the network, how far away can it go? These are all the questions that are being answered now. And as products start coming out of R&D in this area and start moving into commercialization over the next couple of years, this is when 5G is truly going to come into its own and be transformational for both enterprise and for consumers. But let me show you some examples of the split chip structure that we see that are with us today that I can bring to you for inspiration. And as I show you these examples, I want you to think not so much, this farming company was doing this, but think about the structure of what I'm showing you and how a similar kind of structure or similar kind of ability could possibly affect your business, or how it could help you solve a business problem that you have. Because this isn't really about, I'm going to show you a bunch of things other companies are doing. Yes, I'm going to do that, but I want you to think about how it might apply for you. And I can't do that. You have to do that. So one of the first cases I want to show you. This is a case of salmon farming in Norway. We, Nokia, are working with a salmon farming company. And as you can see in the picture, salmon farming is done in these big open water vats that go down really deep. And so, you want to make sure your fish are okay. Well, because these things are so deep and Norway is really dark for half of the time, the trick is, how do you actually see the fish when they're way down at the bottom and it's very, very dark? Well, what they've done is they've put 5G enabled high definition cameras way down there at the bottom, and they're streaming that particular feed to a computer that is doing the analysis of the feed, and if the fish don't look very healthy, then it can alert someone. Now, you might ask yourself at this point, well, why do you need 5G for that? Because 4G is pretty good for video? Well, I'll tell you. 5G, anytime you need high definition video, so HD video, 4G is not good enough for it. So if you need HD video to solve your problem, you have to have 5G. And for this case, because of the very dark nature, you need high definition video to be able to capture every photon you can, to be able to see as much about the fish in those very dark conditions as you can. So that's why 5G in this use case. Now, a similar kind of visual analytics, and I should say, visual analytics use cases like this, where you've got a camera feeding HD video to a computer somewhere else that's doing the analysis, and then maybe bringing back a result. These are some of the earliest use cases we're seeing, because you don't have to wait for that R&D work to split the chip to come first, because the camera itself is already kind of your end device. So, so that's why we have a lot of visual analytics use cases here at the beginning. Now, another visual analytics use case. This is being done by Telia in southern Finland, and again, this is using Nokia 5G, and they're working with ABB. Now, ABB has a bunch of computer assembly plants in and around southern Finland. And I've been to these plants, and I've actually, seen these workstations. And what's going on here is this man who's assembling a computer. He's taking a piece of metal and he's putting it down, and then there's like 20 screws that he has to tighten. And then there's another piece of metal and another 20 screws, and so on. And I think there's like 6 layers. And the problem was that if he gets distracted at any point, then he doesn't tighten a screw all the way, and when you're done, you pick up your finished computer, and it's got something in it. It's like, oh no, okay, that's bad. So what they've done is there's a camera, and it's out that pole that's leading up to the upper right. It's just up. It's on that pole, just out of the picture here, and it's looking down at the workspace. Now, this one needs high definition video because it's silver on silver, and there's a lot of reflections on silver that are very hard for computers to sort out. So it needs to be HD video so the computer has the best chance of identifying what's the screw and what's just a reflection. And in fact, you can see the head of the screwdriver, they had to wrap red duct tape around it so they could make sure the computer knew that that was the screwdriver and it was separate from everything else. And so this HD video is taking the video of the real time of the guy, what he's doing, and it's sending it to a Telia-owned server on the other side of Helsinki. And there it's doing the analytics, and it's bringing back in near real time the results on the screen there. And so the analytics are showing, all right, what are the screws that he's already tightened? What are the screws that and those are green. What are the ones he has yet to do? Those are red. And what's the one he's on right now? Well, that's the blue one in the upper left-hand corner. And what happened since they put this in, they've had 0 computers rejected because of loose screw faults. So they completely eliminated this problem with this feedback given to this person. Now you notice this one is slightly different from the fish farm example, because not only is it HD video, that's where they're the same, but this one also needs to be very low latency. So the information can come back in near real time. So the man who's doing the tightening all the screws, can actually get the information soon enough for it to matter to him. And so that's the other half of when you need 5G as opposed to, say, 4G or even Wi-Fi, guaranteed low latency that gives you this real-time feedback for a job that is currently in process. And so if you're ever wondering, oh, do I need 4G or 5G for this? Do you need HD video? Do you need to have real-time feedback? Those are the 5G use cases for this kind of visual analytics. Now, another kind of, well, this isn't really visual analytics, but it's still got a visual component. The remote monitoring of vehicles. This is an example. It was originally developed by Sprint in the United States in a techno park called Peachtree Corners outside of Atlanta. T-Mobile has since bought Sprint, of course, in the United States, but I'll give Sprint a little bit of credit here because they came up with this first. Because they, in the early days, they actually used Peachtree Corners. They put 5G all over Peachtree Corners as their kind of demonstration area. And they worked with this company called Tortoise e-scooters. And this is a 5G-enabled scooter. And the way that it works to the end user is you step outside of your office building and you use an app on your smartphone to call a scooter, and it comes to you. And then by itself, as you can see in the picture here. Then you get on the scooter and you take control and you drive it to where you want to go. And then when you're done, you step off and then the scooter drives away again, either to go to the next customer or to go back to the charging dock. Now what this does is this solves the problem of having scooters littering the sidewalks of the streets, which is going on in some cities in the world right now today. But this is not an automated scooter. Instead, these scooters are they're equipped with 360-degree cameras and 5G that are carrying that 360-degree camera view to a person who is located in Mexico City. And the person is actually driving that scooter. And of course, they're in Mexico City because the salaries are cheaper there than in Atlanta. And so it's a person that's driving the scooter. And I think this is super smart because, you know, we're all kind of a little hesitant with this idea of automated things rolling around places where humans are. And we're really not ready yet to have completely fully automated things. And neither are the things really ready yet to be with us. And so by the people in the park knowing that there's a human being behind this, that increases the acceptance rate. But at the same time, by the humans driving these scooters around, they're actually generating the data, the location data and the responsiveness data that will be needed to ultimately turn this into an automated product down the road. Now, this has been so successful. This originally was launched in 2019, that in, I think, October of 2021, so just a few months ago, T-Mobile actually expanded to work with cars, actual cars, from a company called Beep. Now, and this is exactly the same structure as that Tortoise e-scooters. These are little shuttle buses that run around the technology park on a fixed schedule, but they're still being driven over 5G by human beings that are located far away. In this case, the human beings are located somewhere in Florida, because it's a different company, but they're still hundreds of miles away and then driving these vehicles over 5G because 5G with the scooters was proved to have the responsiveness and the stability in order on the scooters when if it crashes into something, that's okay. They proved that it worked well enough that now they've upgraded to much larger vehicles because now they're confident in 5G's ability to provide that remote support and that remote control. Now, another example in that remote control kind of category comes from a company called Sarcos Robotics. Now, they build exoskeletons for use in big industrial settings. And so these are things that you put your body into, and now you've got superpowers, and you can lift up really heavy things on the factory floor, for example. Well, after, they've had this product out there for a while, and Sarcos realized, oh, actually, sometimes it's not a good idea if there's a human body between the robot, the exoskeleton, and the thing that needs doing, because we're kind of squishy and vulnerable, and maybe sometimes it's a good idea if the human being is far away from whatever work that needs to be done. Think about, I don't know, moving barrels of explosives or something. And so what they've done is they've put a 360-degree camera up where the head would be of the existing exoskeletons. And then they use 5G because, again, anytime you're doing HD or 360-degree, you've got a big file, it needs 5G, connected to a virtual reality headset that a human being standing a safe distance away can then use the same hand controls if they were in the exoskeleton to control the skeleton from a distance and then get the job done. And so, yeah, so another use of 5G on the factory floor. Then kind of a last example here that kind of brings together almost all the things that we've just been talking about. This comes from a company called AeroFarms. They're located in the United States, and we, Nokia Bell Labs, we're working with them on this particular example. AeroFarms is a really cool company. What they do is they take factory warehouses or big manufacturing areas that are no longer being used for their original purpose. So they're kind of giant buildings standing empty. And what they do is they turn it into farmland. And they turn it into farmland, as you can see in the picture here, by having these shelves with trays of plants just stacked right up to the ceiling. And by being able to then just close the doors, you have instantly organic plants because now you don't need any kind of pesticide, you don't need any kind of herbicide for weeds because these, nothing gets at these plants because you've closed the doors. Another real advantage is that because they're stacking the trays up to the ceiling, they can actually get almost 400 times more productivity from the footprint of land that this factory is standing on. And factory properties tend to be pretty close to cities, not far away from them. And so what they're doing is they're turning industrial land very close to cities where the people who are going to eat this stuff live. It's turning that into the place to grow. So that actually eliminates the need, the shipping costs and energy costs to get the produce when you grow it to the actual people who are going to consume it in the cities. So, really lovely, all kinds of sustainability, wonderful things happening here. However, this one's a bit like the salmon farming in that you've got all these things growing. You've got to make sure that they are okay. And so, and they're stacked up to the ceiling. How do we do this? So what we have are drones that are powered by 5G, connected over 5G is a better way to say that are running on predetermined paths, pre-programmed paths, and they're using HD because you need to look at the details of the plants, and capturing the video and then sending it back for analysis. Now, this one is not a real-time use case, like with the salmon. If you find out that your plant in tray 3027 need a little more water, you can wait 10 minutes to get that information. You don't need it immediately. But the being able to capture the HD video for that analysis that happens off of the drone and somewhere in the network, that's actually, the benefit here. Oh, and one thing that I forgot to say when I was talking about the Telia example of the man building the computers, when I was there, I asked the ABB people, I said, this is really nice, but do you really need 5G? I mean, couldn't you just have the server running the analysis like on a computer under his desk here? I mean, why do you really need to have 5G to take this analysis to the other side of Helsinki? And the ABB guys, and I make an emphasis of this because if I'd asked the Telia guys, they would have said, sure, we need 5G. So I wanted to ask the factory owners, do you really need 5G? And they said, yes, we do. Because the expensive part of this implementation is the computer analytics. And so by having one instance of the computer analytics that sits in a server that's hosted by Telia, on the other side of Helsinki, that one instance serves the video that's being generated from our workstations in all of our factories in southern Finland. And so that makes this cost effective. So that's another reason for having the processing off of whatever the end device is, because you then only need one instance of the processing, which, as I said, is the expensive part of these implementations. Okay, so those are all kinds of various flavors of remote control and visual analytics that are out there now. And because those are the things you can do right now without waiting for that chip splitting to happen. So let's now look at a use case that is leaning a little bit more into the future. And this has to do with mixed reality. Now, one of the industries that has really taken up virtual reality most enthusiastically is the entire architecture and building industry. Because, as opposed to looking at two-dimensional blueprints and trying to imagine what these things represent, with virtual reality, you can build the full building in three-dimensional digital and then put on a VR headset and see it and walk through it and go, oh, no, we need to have this over here and not that over there. It's much cheaper to fix things when it's still just pixels as opposed to after you've started building. So, that's great. However, the file size for these architectural renderings are so gigantic that, the the average network, the normal network now, the 4G network, can't carry those. And so we've been limited to seeing these big architectural renderings in the architect's offices with a high-end VR headset with a cable running to a really powerful computer. So you can't really see what you're doing out in the field. But Telstra in Australia, working with Taylor Construction, which is Australia's largest construction company, they've started dropping 5G base stations at construction sites and then taking a Microsoft HoloLens, which does not have 5G on it normally, and attaching a dongle to, or a 5G radio unit to the HoloLens. Now, when you do that, that adds about 40 milliseconds of latency. So for a fast reaction, real-time kind of use case, that's not so good. But for this, it is fast enough to allow rendering of the giant architectural plan to happen in the network, and then to have it be delivered to you wearing the 5G HoloLens when you are on site. And for those of us who are not in the building industry, that's like, okay, sure, you can see it where it's going to go. All right, that's nice. But no, the Taylor people, when they talk about this, they are practically crying with joy because it makes such a difference to be able to see what the building is going to look like in the place where it's going to be built before you start doing anything. Because, we're human. We make mistakes. And practically every building has some way that the planners did not expect that it's going to interact with the actual site where it is. And so the Taylor people are like, oh, we can save millions with this. And apparently they are. And saving millions, yes, please. So we're going to be seeing more and more of this kind of use case. Now, up to now, I've purely been speaking about enterprise use cases. And part of this, well, all of this is because we're still in the early days of 5G rollouts. And it's much easier to do an enterprise use case right now because you have a very limited footprint. I'm just putting 5G at the factory where this goes, and a limited number of use cases. I'm just going to be doing this particular video analytics. So for consumer, it's going to be a little bit longer. I mean, there's some countries like South Korea that have already covered the entire country in 5G, and they're already rolling with a lot of consumer use cases. But for the rest of us, it will be a little bit longer. And COVID slowed everybody down too, but that's okay. But now I want to actually move to looking at what is going to come when we do have consumer 5G and what it's going to enable. And one last thing. Oh, sorry, I have to say this before we move on from enterprise. This is an example from KDDI, the Japanese operator. And this is a particular use case. This is one that's offered to consumers. This exists now. And what it is, you take your 5G smartphone, and in the Ginza section of Tokyo, you look through your smartphone and you start up their particular app here. And what it does is, you can see on the picture on the left, it shows you mixed, integrated with the visual that you see. Here are points of interest, these colored dots in the sky. Here is a pink line on the street that I can follow. And then here's Aiko, the digital assistant. And I can go up to Aiko and I can ask her questions, holding up my smartphone like this and seeing her in place as I'm standing there in Ginza. Okay, that's nice. But then if you follow that pink line, and it will take you to the KDDI shop, yay, which may not be that exciting. But then if you go inside, the pink line on the floor continues, and it takes you to the back of the shop, where there is a Hokusai exhibition, the 19th century Japanese artist Hokusai, who did the Great Wave. And you can just barely see there in the distance the Great Wave at the back of the shop advertising the exhibition. So that's the end user's reward for following the pink line to the KDDI shop. Now, that is not the most exciting thing any of us have ever seen done with technology. But the reason I wanted to highlight this particular example is that KDDI did not do this because they wanted to bring a lot of people to see Hokusai. KDDI wanted to do this because they wanted to see if they could make a partnership, or they could make something like this happen because of the ecosystem requirements. There are 5 partners involved with making this use case happen. KDDI with their 5G, a company called Mawari that is doing the augmented reality aspect of it, a company called Sturfy that does the outdoor mapping, which is, and actually they're satellite-based, and a company called Immersal, which does the indoor mapping, which is LiDAR-based, and then AWS Wavelength hosting all of it in KDDI's network. 5 different companies coming together. And the reason I wanted to highlight this is that as we go forward with developing things to do with new technologies, there is no way that individual companies are going to have the expertise to do everything. And so more and more and more partnerships are going to be needed. And I actually, earlier in my career within Nokia, I was the manager of a development lab, and we were bringing new things to the market all the time. I found in the course of my running that lab for several years, technical questions never ended a project. We always managed to find technical answers to everything. What would cause problems, and enough to end the project, were business problems, or legal problems, or people problems, but never technology. And so in this new world of needing to have multiple partners, and you know, so if you have 5 partners, as soon as somebody changes a comma in the contract, all the other 5 all the other 4, their legal departments have to say okay. I mean, that's a nightmare. And so not only do we need to be agile in terms of developing our technology, we need to be agile in terms of developing our business processes and our partnering processes and our ecosystem creation. Because the companies that are easy to work with are going to be the ones that succeed in bringing new applications based on these new technologies to market. So have a look at your own processes. We're all guilty of this. We've all built things to suit ourselves and ourselves internally. But you need to really rethink how your processes go when you're actually partnering with other companies, because if you're slow, nobody's going to ask you to play with them. So, little word of warning here from, from people who have been there. So, more and more partnerships as we develop these new technology projects. Okay, back to consumer. Now, I really want to focus on augmented reality here. Now, and if we think about augmented reality right now, there's a lot of it around on smartphones, which is great. There's some really good experiences. Instagram and Snapchat filters, they're a lot of fun. Okay, that's great. But then there's a lot of other kinds of other categories that are more kind of informational categories. And what I've got here, right here, is this is an example from Reebok. And this is an app called Courting Greatness. And with it, you run it on your phone, and it's augmented reality. And what it's showing is the actual dimensions of a regulation basketball court. And so, I took this picture using this app with my own phone, and that's my neighbor's. You can kind of see there's a black basketball hoop. It's kind of leaning to the side a little bit. That's my neighbor's actual basketball hoop. So what you do is you look through your camera using this app, and it shows you those dimensions of a regulation basketball court. So first of all, I can see my neighbor's basketball hoop is a little short. Okay, that's fine. But the point is to be able to then mark out on the ground in chalk or tape where the three-point line is and where the free throw line is. So as you're practicing basketball in your home court, you can make sure that you are standing the correct distance away, so that when you get to a real basketball court, you won't be surprised that you've been practicing with something that doesn't actually match what a real basketball court is like. So really, really nice kind of consumer app here. But this starts to get at what the real power of augmented reality is, which is the ability to make the invisible visible. And there is so much that's going to change our lives and change our world held within that concept. And so, I want to take you through this because this is really important. But first of all, okay, so today, augmented reality, we've got, it runs over 4G, it's on smartphones. If there's any mapping component, it's a two-dimensional map. And examples are the things I mentioned already, or something like Pokemon Go, which uses a map. And all that's great. That's fine. It's mostly consumer. It's wonderful. But frankly, speaking as a person from Nokia who's really interested in finding new things to do with the new networks that are coming, not so interesting, because there's no new network component of this. This just runs over existing 4G. So, that's nice. But where this is going is where it's really exciting, because of course, when 5G comes in, and it enables that split chip scenario, that's when we finally have enabled augmented reality headsets that are like just regular eyeglasses, that are light, and the battery lasts a long time, and fashionable, and can be something that you can wear all day. And without 5G, that doesn't happen because you've got to move the processing off the headset and into the network in order for the battery to last long enough and for it not to heat up and for it not to be big and bulky. So the processing has to happen off the device, and 5G is going to enable that. But the other big change that's happening is mapping. There's many companies in the world right now that are mapping the world in 3 dimensions, not just 2 dimensions. And so this is part of why Apple has LiDAR on a lot of its new products, to be able to map the world in 3 dimensions around you. And once you have this combination of augmented reality glasses and then 3D mapping and 3D awareness in your computing, that then lets you create and combine digital content, both entertainment and information, with the physical world around you as you move through and as you inhabit that world. Now, this example that I give here, it's a guy walking through his grocery store and it's showing him discounts. Okay, that's not very exciting because my grocery store already shows me discounts just with a little piece of paper on the shelf. That works pretty well. I don't really need this. But what if I were lactose intolerant? And this was actually showing me, oh, here's the products that are best for you because you're lactose intolerant. Or what about de-augmenting reality? And what it does is it blurs out the products that have a lot of lactose. So when I walk through the store, I don't even see the stuff that's bad for me. That's a possibility too. And that's why I've got a question mark here right next to that example, because this is a foundationally new way of us interacting with computers and interacting with the world. And we don't know where this is going to take us. Because this is fundamentally, at least I call it the spatial internet. There's other words for it, but this is, that's the term I'm using right now. And what this is and the reason I'm so excited about this is that we're changing from, when we're using computing right now, we have to look at a screen. Right? Our gaze dead ends in a screen. And that means that we're not looking at the world around us. By moving the information and the computing into a headset that we're looking through, now the computing is looking at the world and getting the same context that we are getting, and it's presenting things to us in relation to the 3-dimensional world that we're moving around in. And that is totally different because it puts us back in the world. Instead of sitting at a restaurant and everybody looking down at their phones, now you are sitting and you're actually looking at the person across from you. Because taking screens out is actually it's a really good thing. Screens are cutting us off from the world right now. And we all know it, and this is a solution for that. Now, this is also, the spatial internet is a cousin of the metaverse. Now, I'm very grateful to Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook / Meta for bringing attention to the metaverse by changing the name of the company to Meta. However, I'm a little bit, it's not so good because the vision of the metaverse that the company Meta is talking about is purely a virtual reality vision. So the fully digital, fully immersed. And while I love that, we talked about the fitness earlier, that's actually not everything. For me, the guru about the metaverse, if you're interested and want to know more and really get a deep dive, there's a venture capitalist named Matthew Ball. And he's got a series of articles, and they're the ones in the white circles around that black one there, that he wrote last year about all the different elements of the metaverse. And I can give you, it's a really short form here. It's not just VR, it's also augmented reality. It's basically any kind of union of the physical and the digital is ultimately the metaverse, right? So that's how we've got both the virtual reality and the augmented reality. They're really, just different points on the same metaverse spectrum. It's bringing digital into our active lives, visual digital. Then other elements of the metaverse are having a digital self, a digital avatar that stays with you, having some kind of economy, blockchain, digital goods. This is obviously a huge topic on its own. And then having common standards and having community-driven creation. So it's really what we're talking about is the immersive internet. And that's a whole other topic. But the reason I'm mentioning it here is that, yeah, there's a lot of buzz around the metaverse right now, and there's a lot of companies that are saying, oh, we're doing something in the metaverse. Most of the time, right now, it has to do with blockchain, or it has to do with NFTs. For example, both McDonald's and Walmart in the United States have filed trademarks that will allow them to create, ultimately, I mean, they're putting the legal stuff in place, and what we're guessing from what we're seeing is that ultimately you'll be able to walk into a Walmart or a McDonald's in virtual reality at a virtual Walmart or McDonald's, and then just choose things like, say, oh, I'd like a Big Mac and some fries, or, oh, I'd like this off the shelf, and this off the shelf, and this off the shelf, and then the actual physical goods will be delivered to your house half an hour later. So being able to, go shopping in the store without leaving your own home, that kind of thing is what they're setting up. But that's a virtual reality thing, and that's a blockchain and digital goods kind of thing. And so this is where most of the corporate activity is happening right now. But if we look at the whole metaverse, the whole spectrum of it, and if we think about the metaverse versus the spatial internet, right? If we look at these two pictures, when you've got a fully digital reality, it can be anything. And like, oh, look how exciting, yay, wonderful, wonderful. And the spatial internet, well, the world still mostly looks like it is, except, oh, here's a shark swimming by. Okay. If you look at just these pictures, it seems like the virtual reality metaverse is the really exciting one. However, if you think about the reality of it, being in virtual reality is like going to a movie theater. It's wonderful, it's immersive, it can be life-changing, but you're not going to do it every hour of every day. And that's where I think this kind of vision of, oh, we're all going to be living in the virtual reality metaverse and like doing all of our interactions. No. We're going to go in there, those of us who do, and not everyone will go in there for maybe a couple of hours at a time, a couple of days a week. It's like going to the movies. It's not going to be all the time. Whereas the spatial internet, where you remain in your physical world, but have digital content that enhances your understanding and your appreciation of the things around you, but you stay in your world just by wearing a headset, that's the thing that's going to be transformational. That's the thing that's actually going to be with us for the long term. And that's the thing that most of us are going to experience on a daily basis by 10 years from now, I say. So about a decade from now. Now, you might be sitting there and thinking, wait. She's telling me I'm going to be wearing these glasses like all the time, and that's going to be my main computing thing? Like maybe even replacing my smartphone? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I know I sound like a crazy person right now, or somebody from like total science fiction world, but let me show you why I think this. Now remember, for technology to take off, it has to solve a problem. All right? So what problem would be solved by moving my computing from a smartphone to my face? Well, first of all, the problem of the problem of looking at a screen all the time. It solves that problem. But let's look at what some companies are doing so that you can help understand why I see this the way that I see it. First of all, Apple has never confirmed or denied that they are actually working on any kind of headset, virtual reality, augmented reality, or otherwise. However, we can see their patents because patents are public. They have filed thousands of patents on augmented reality headsets. And here's one of the patents that I'm really excited about. And it's the ability to use an augmented reality headset, glasses, to do vision correction. I wear glasses. If you want me to put something on my face, you have to fix my vision for me. Otherwise, I can't wear them. So this is the fundamental #1 thing that glasses do and glasses have to do. They have to fix your vision. Okay, great. Well, there's another problem that I have, at least in America. Glasses are really expensive. And anytime my prescription changes, I have to go and I have to pay another, hundreds of dollars for a new pair of glasses. If I can just say, glasses, I have a new prescription and it's blah, then cha-ching, oh, I'm done. I just saved myself hundreds of dollars. So technologies that solve problems are the ones that take off. All right, here's one solving a problem right here and now. Now, another thing that is out there is Meta has their reality labs. They have been working on enhanced audio, and these are obviously lab prototype devices here, but the idea is to use glasses that track where somebody is looking and then prioritize the audio that is coming from whatever it is that you're looking at over any other audio that might be happening in your space. So the guy on the left, he looks at the guy on the right and he hears the guy on the right's voice more than anything else. But if he turns and he looks at the TV there in the background, then that would be what he would hear more loudly. Now, this kind of thing, they're really going to have to work on privacy here with this one before they release this, because you could also use this to like listen to a conversation 6 tables away in the restaurant, and really that's not what we want. But this idea of enhanced audio going with the enhanced video, and then we have this example from Google. Where they teased just recently, they just teased this. They showed this video that showed this capability. So we don't know any details, but this is speech to text to give subtitles for real life. And so the woman that's there on the right and who looks kind of surprised, this is a woman who in real life, they've just put these glasses on her and somebody is speaking to her and says, "Oh, you should be seeing what I'm saying." And she is seeing subtitles of what the guy is saying, and she's like, "Oh," she's just completely shocked. But the utility of being able to have subtitles, to be able to see what people are saying to you in real life, that's immediately apparent. And let's just do a quick review of how 5G makes this possible, because it's taking the audio, it's sending the audio file over 5G to something, a server in the network, that is doing the immediate, because it needs to be real near time, translation into, it's doing speech to text, and here's the text. But going one step further, it's also doing translation. The man on the left, and this is all from the Google video, the man on the left, he's speaking English, and then the person who's wearing the glasses, it's seeing it translated into Spanish for him. And then the woman on the bottom left, she's deaf, and she's actually getting translation, visual translations that she can read of what her daughter is saying to her in just plain spoken English. So, you know, immediately useful, valuable. You don't need to explain this use case to anyone. So augmenting vision, augmenting hearing, and then giving subtitles for the real world, these are 3 instantly, you know, understandable use cases that I think are going to be the breakthrough, if you will, killer apps for head-mounted devices. And the same way that our original mobile phones only made telephone calls, once enough people are actually wearing these and we start getting economies of scale, then we'll start having other companies come up with new things that you can put on this. Oh, let's add text, let's add this, let's add that. And next thing, well, and it'll take a while to develop. I mean, it will take a while to develop. But again, within a decade, I believe that the things that we wear on our face are going to have the functionality that will replace the smartphones that we carry in our pockets right now. Now, and so, okay, well, what will the interface look like? Because if you've taken away my phone, you've taken away my keyboard. So what do I do with that? Well, this is another Apple patent. And so using front-facing cameras on the headset, you can actually see the hands of the wearer. And here's a picture from the glasses maker Nreal, kind of demonstrating the same thing. If you can see the hands, and you have the ability to create digital objects, you can actually have those two interact with each other. So now you can create menus. Ta-da! And in fact, Microsoft demonstrated this just last year with Niantic, the Pokemon Go company. They had John Hanke, who's the CEO of Pokemon Go, wearing a Microsoft HoloLens and using his voice and his gestures to play Pokemon Go with a HoloLens out in a park as a proof of concept. So yeah, so voice and gesture interactions with our head-mounted devices. And so I've already said, you know, the meta version of the metaverse, which is fully digital, that's wonderful, but it's limited. Niantic, as a company, with their vision of having the computing, the digital things integrated with our physical world as we exist primarily in the physical world, that I think is the more powerful vision. And that's the one that I personally believe in as well. So Niantic is a company to keep an eye on. But let me give you an example of, 2 examples of how this might work, like in something that's being done right now. So Snap Spectacles are an early AR glasses that are out there. They have an app called Monkey Racing. And in this, you set it up first. You put on the snap spectacles, you start the app, and you have to set it up first. And so you go around your environment, and you're creating an obstacle course. And so you figure out where the bananas are going to go. They're going to make up your obstacle course. Indoors, outdoors, wherever in your space, no limitation. And then once you create that loop, you can then hand the glasses to somebody else, and they'll see the bananas, and then it's a race. Whoever actually gets all the bananas first wins. Well, because the glasses they know how your body is moving because they can follow your head movement. And they also have the audio component, they can hear your voice. So to get a high score in this game, it's not enough just to have the shortest time and get all the bananas. You have to move and sound like a monkey while you're doing it to get the high score. So you have to be going in whoo, 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 as you go in order to get the high score. And so this opens up the whole idea of these things on our head, not just educating ourselves about the outside world, but also being able to educate ourselves about our own bodies as well, and giving a lot of feedback the same way that a wearable here can do. So there's going to be, a lot of potential here as well. And then the last example that I want to give you is one that really excites me. This comes from just some developer out on the internet. He calls himself Voxel Guy. He was vacuuming, and one day he's like, oh, this is really boring. I need to make this more exciting. So what he did was he created a virtual model of his living room. He anchored it to his physical living room. And then he put on his VR headset and put his VR hand controller on his vacuum cleaner. And then as he was vacuuming his physical living room, in his virtual reality room, he had it rain euros all over the floor. Imaginary euros, of course. And then as he's vacuuming in the physical world, he is actually hoovering up imaginary euros. He's gamified vacuuming. And so this gamification of everyday routine tasks, the boring stuff we all have to do all the time, I think this is going to be huge. Anytime you can measure something, you can create a competition out of it, or at least give rewards. And so the idea of making the tasks around the house fun, or giving more incentive for maybe your children to do them, yes. So I think there's going to be a huge, huge market in these kinds of things. Now, but another reason that I'm talking to you so much about this consumer thing that doesn't really exist yet is if you look at the companies that are actually working on developing augmented reality headsets, they are Apple, Microsoft, Google, Jio, which is an operator in India that is getting the entire strength of the Indian developer market into mixed reality, Meta, Niantic, Snap, and Amazon. These companies collectively are spending tens of billions, with a B, billions of dollars every year to develop augmented reality headsets. So I don't know which company is going to come first. I don't know what the first breakthrough is going to be. I don't know what the timing is going to be. But somebody is going to crack this, and when they do, it's going to be big. And so my closing words to you today are, you've gone back in time. It is now 1993. You meet yourself. How do you finish the sentence? This internet thing, it's going to be big. The one thing you should do right now is what? What would you tell yourself to do with regard to the internet in 1993? Many people have different, there's no right answer here. Everybody has a different answer for this. Okay? You've gone back in time. It's now 2022. You meet yourself. How do you finish this sentence? This mixed reality thing, this 5G-powered mixed reality thing is going to be huge. The one thing you should do right now is what? Whatever your first answer was, maybe what you might want to consider doing right now about this one, either for yourself or for your company. And so with that as food for thought, thank you very much.
Leslie, this was very, very interesting. Thank you so much. And right after you finished, we gave you a chair. I'm going to give you a moment just to breathe because this lady has been talking for the last 2 hours since I've met her here. So you have so much energy, which is great. So thank you. And take a couple of minutes just to relax. By the way, what is the
Nice to meet you.
We have new people joining us, and this is not virtual reality. This is reality. I would like to welcome Boris Drilo, member of the Management Board and Chief Technical and Information Officer at Hrvatski Telekom, and Marijana Bačić, Vice President for Corporate Customers. Welcome, both of you.
Thank
so
you.
good to have you. I'm going to start with you, Boris. Just a quick question for Leslie at the beginning. What is the right answer to the first and the second question? And I'm recording right now in my head, especially for the second.
Well, the answer for me, I have to say, when the internet came, I dragged my feet. I did not really think about it. I kind of let it happen around me until one day, I guess I have
Bill
to start
Gates himself said that it's a faux. It's not going to. It's a huge bubble.
Well, no. Back in the early days, he was bullish on the internet, but he didn't know what it was going to be for. The same way, I can't really tell you what the mixed reality is going to be for, but it's going to be this. The fact that it's there is going to enable all kinds of things we can't even imagine today. But the one thing that I would tell my 1993 self is get yourself educated.
Yeah.
Get yourself educated. Go out and learn about what is virtual reality, what is the experience. Experience it for yourself. And the whole financial side of the metaverse, the blockchain, the NFTs, understand what those are. Go out and educate yourself, because if there's any kind of advantage that these are going to bring to your business, you are not going to be able to bring them to your business if you don't know what they are.
Exactly.
And so be an early adopter.
And be prepared.
And be prepared. Yes.
So when it comes to education, Boris, you're going to educate us on everything that Leslie said right now wouldn't be possible without 5G. And in terms of technicalities, how can 5G compare to the way that we used to do things before 5G?
There are two things, basically. One is speed, another one is latency. So those are foundations for the new kind of applications that Leslie was talking about. So if we are talking about VR, AR, then we need a lot of bandwidth and we need much faster networks than they are today. So this is where 5G is going to contribute. 5G is still not there completely, so this is something what we are still waiting to meet somewhere in the future. However, the fiber optics is there, so we already now have certain capabilities in the network in order to support the applications like this. But in general terms, nothing about what Leslie was talking about is feasible without telecommunication networks. And it is a great thing to see how internet is changing. So when we are talking about VR, AR, we are talking about changes, how we are going to interact with the internet. So we cannot say that internet is going to be different than it is today. So some of the components will remain, but some of new components are going to come. So this is going to be a new way how we are going to interact with the digital content. So new kind of interface.
It's going to change the way that we interact with the internet and with each other inside the whole system.
Absolutely. I don't know how good Leslie has been briefed, but just a few days ago, we had a Metaverse press conference here where we had VR sets and we invited journalists, and we did it in VR world. So we had few different Metaverse spaces. We were going through them. We had a teleportation. We had a presentation there. That was maybe old-fashioned to deliver the content, but we are still in the process of learning.
Maybe I give a lot of presentations in the metaverse, actually.
Yeah, so we are learning. So there is some legacy still with us, but we will improve along the way, I'm sure.
Marijana, in terms of future scenarios that Leslie was talking about, what is the role of Hrvatski Telekom in all of it?
First of all, I would like to thank Leslie. This was really great presentation. Thank you very much, and energizing so much. Thank you, thank you. It was pretty much fast with a lot of information, but very useful.
Imagine, like, watch it at half speed. Yeah, that might make more sense. Yeah.
But let's start with the technology. So as Boris said, technology, and also you, Leslie, technology is prerequisite and enabler for solutions that we want to provide to our customers. So from the customer perspective, maybe they are not aware of all possibilities that technology can provide. So I'm really glad to see that we in Croatian Telecom are in really good situation comparing to the trends that you presented. It is not future far away from us. It is really near future, I would say. And in some cases, it is already happening, especially on enterprise side. So we have really unique position here in Croatia. We are one of big investors, actually the biggest one in infrastructure. But what is also important, and we are proud of that fact, we have total ecosystem that you also mentioned in the beginning, in introduction. Yeah, this is really important, especially on the field of enterprises. So we have, besides infrastructure, we have our daughter company, system integrator company. We work with a lot of partners. We cooperate with universities, with academic communities, but also with startups. And what is really important, we work a lot with our customers, and we know what kind of problems they want to solve, and we are helping them. We have few cases that later on I can share with you, but they are pretty much similar with the cases that you presented in the introduction part.
Yeah, and actually, sorry if I can just say, because I go a lot of places around the world, and what's unusual is not only having an ecosystem, but actually having the integration.
Exactly.
Because quite often that's the part that's missing. Everybody has, I mean, ideas are everywhere, and that's great. But then finding the person or the element that wants to take ownership and then see this through for the life of the project, that's rare. And the one who's going to take responsibility for being the glue to stitch everything together, that's rare too. And so you actually have those capabilities. Wow. I want to come work with you.
So it means not only in Croatia, but
yeah, I mean globally, you're actually one of the best B2B best equipped B2B places I've seen. Yeah,
Thanks
honestly.
A lot of lovely compliments being given out today. So Leslie, can you give us a couple of positive examples, maybe in terms of what benefits do you see from companies using those smart options of doing business?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, is the ability to get information that you never had access to before. And one of the examples, the city of Wellington in New Zealand, they're actually using digital twins. They've built a digital twin of the entire city. It was generated by satellite.
Okay.
And then you can look at the city in virtual reality, in glasses, and then they can do things like raise the water level, because Wellington's on the sea, and then see, okay, as global warming happens and the sea level rises, what's going to go underwater first? And what they've said, what they've told me is, the conversation turns from, oh, it'll never happen, it's not a problem, to what do we do about it? And so that's one of the really spectacular things about digital twins, which is also kind of a side thing here, because the reason digital twins falls into 5G is digital twins are often very big files, and if you're going to transport them or visualize them in other places, you need 5G for that. And so, but digital twins eliminate that, I don't believe it, and you can play what-if scenarios, and then discussion turns to, what are we going to do about it? And so
that's such a great example.
Yeah.
So they made that. That's great. So what would happen if the sea level would rise up, or
and what buildings are the most vulnerable? What parts of the city? Right. And they've also done things like what parts like they don't have a tram. I mean, here in Zagreb is a beautiful tram system. I'm loving the Zagreb trams. Yeah. And so, but Wellington doesn't have that, and they were arguing about, well, if we put a tram in, is there going to be room for cars and pedestrians and bicyclists still? And so they're able, with the digital twin, to put in a tram, and then everyone can just look at it and go, right, it works or it doesn't work. And then it takes away, it's like the architectural example that I showed you before. When you take things away from relying on people's imaginations and move it into something concrete that everybody can see, now you are all seeing the same thing. And you can now talk about the same thing. Yeah.
But in Croatia, we like to be surprised. Sometimes, yeah. Let's see what's going to happen once we do it, once it's done. Okay, so Boris, Hrvatski Telekom has recently presented 5G Atlas. It's a comprehensive study conducted by Economic Institute about effects and benefits of 5G network. Can you give us a few points?
I think that everything about 5G is about being more productive and also bringing internet to the places where you cannot do it with the fiber network. But it is also about finding out the new solutions that are going to help in the industry going forward. This is something which probably Marijana is going to talk much more about it. The crucial thing is when we are talking about 5G and high-speed networks is why they need to have such a high speed. And what Leslie was talking about is about VR and AR, and the difference between those applications and the way how we are consuming the content nowadays is really different. And this makes the difference between the 5G requirements and 4G, 3G requirements that we had in the past. In order to consume the content in the VR environment, in the metaverse, what needs to be done is transmission of the huge amount of information. So basically you need to send the complete picture of the 3D environment of the person, because at any time person can, move his or her head around, and at that moment the picture needs to be exactly in front of the eyes of the person. So this means that we need to transmit about 10 to 12 times more information than we are doing right now for the smartphone usage or by consuming the HD content over the IPTV or any of the OTT providers like Netflix. So generally, without 5G, there is no new economy, there is no Internet 3.0 or Web 3.0, how are we like to call it, neither we are going to have Industry 4.0 that we are talking about when it comes to the IoT, robotics and things like that.
That was actually my next question. Which part of businesses in Croatia and which part of Croatia, which region will benefit the most from 5G? Yeah.
Maybe I can.
You can answer that. Yes.
Yes, definitely. Maybe to point out two showcases that we already have. One is in Industry 4.0. Actually, we call that Smart Factory inside the Croatian Telekom, because we really think that factories are field that we can make a difference in digitization. In Croatia, the most of companies are at the early stage of digital transformation, and actually our responsibility, not only social responsibility but also business responsibility, is to help them and to enable this transformation journey. So we have really good example in one food production company outside of Zagreb, but in Croatia, where we have these high definition cameras. Yes, exactly, in assurance quality process, and we are helping in real time to this customer to see, for example, in packaging process, if everything is sealed like it should be, or maybe there is some small part of glass or maybe of wood and things like that. And even we can recognize if there is some kind of microbiological contamination. So this is really, I would say, great. And we use not only 5G as a technology, as a prerequisite for that, but we also use artificial intelligence and things like that. So this is one example. Another one that I would like to point out is in agriculture. Something similar that you mentioned. It is example from one company also in Slavonia. This is part of Croatia, in their vineyards, where we also have these high-definition cameras, and they are helping in real time to process and monitor a really large amount of data, again, because of prerequisite, because we have technology, and we are helping them to see and to act related on the info that they will receive, if they need to maybe put additional water to irrigate additionally, or if there is some pesticides or something like that. So I see a lot of benefits, not only for businesses, but also for us as the final customers or members of society in Croatia. So this is really a great thing, cool thing, and we are really excited to be part of this journey. And I'm so happy when you present something like these trends that are trends all over the world, but we are very familiar here in Croatia, especially in Croatian Telekom with all that.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
So Leslie, we have been talking about companies, huge brands, and smart technology, smart business. What about small ones? What about innovators, those that are just starting? What advice would you give to them?
Well, in a way, the innovators have an advantage because they don't have the legacy thinking or the legacy systems that they have to worry about. And in fact, yeah, and that can actually be more important than anything else. Because as I said, you know, well, but also the ability to, ideas are, anybody can have an idea, and many people do have ideas, but executing the ideas
Much
is another
harder.
thing. Right, and when it's something that's new and kind of goes against the grain, then it might receive pushback from the bigger companies, and that's where a smaller company can move faster. However, smaller companies quite often don't have the reach, and that's where something like an ecosystem play is so important. So it lets small companies that are more agile in developing new kinds of technologies and innovations get then access to a larger audience and a larger reach, because that KDDI example that I showed, a couple of the you know, with the 5 partners, 2 of those companies are really small companies, but by being able to work with the larger grouping, they're able to actually bring their new innovations out to a much larger audience. So ecosystem is actually, you know, for the really small companies out there, start making some big friends. And the
Which
big
is
guys
always a
make
good
some
idea.
small friends.
Yeah.
Right.
That's always a good
It's
idea.
going to take all of us working together, actually, to really do the serious changes. Yeah.
Exactly. So we do have a couple of minutes for questions. We did ask you to, which camera? Oh, that one. So we did ask you to send us emails if you have any questions. We do have time for a couple of them. This is our lovely Daniel. Thank you very much. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, first one is for you, Boris. Are you implementing 5G only in the cities? What is your plan of implementing 5G in rural areas?
Currently, we are implementing 5G where we see that there is a need for it. Mostly it is in urban areas because we are having users with 5G terminals in urban areas, and that is the way how we are intelligently making the investment decisions. 5G is expensive technology and you cannot roll it all over the place at once, so you need to be cautious. Also, it is coming with a higher energy consumption, for instance, and therefore this is something what you need to take in mind when you are having your or making your 5G rollout plans. Of course, we are deploying it in rural areas, especially in the particular spots on the coastline where we see the need for capacity and for better internet access where we cannot reach those places with fixed infrastructure. This is important thing. However, the answer is that we are going that in the mixed way, currently more urban than rural. And when we are talking about areas outside the larger cities, that is mostly about the coastline.
Okay, so the next question is from Marijana. How open are our companies in terms of smart business solutions like 5G?
We are still in the phase of education, I would say.
You said earlier it's very important for people to know what they're getting.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the purpose, to explain them the purpose, what they can get from the technology. So this is the educational phase, I would say. We are somewhere in the middle of this phase, and we are looking forward for new implementations. Of course, they are able to understand what kind of advantages they can get from 5G solutions if we start with concrete problem that we need to solve. And this is also that you mentioned, so I'm just repeating, but it seems that we have the same view on this topic. And when customer is aware of advantages, then of course it is easy to implement each solution.
Good, great.
Yeah, if I can supplement what Marijana has said, there is one thing which is coming with 5G, which is fundamentally different than any generation before. And that is possibility to build the application over the 5G network, so over the 5G core, let's say, that is a part of the 5G network that basically manages the connections between the end users or devices with the remaining part of the network and then going towards the application. And that is the way how it is structured. You are having the open API, so open application programming interfaces. This is something that is a usual thing in the internet, and therefore you are having all of those developers doing the e-commerce things, entertainment things on the internet. But with 5G, this is going to be feasible for the things, for the devices. So you will be able as a developer to approach to 5G network over the API. So you will be able to place your application, and your market and addressable use cases or whatsoever is going to increase rapidly. This is the fundamental difference between 5G and any other telecom network, because you are having this possibility to have 5G like 5G development, like full stack development, what is called right now in the IT, meaning that you understand what is going, behind the application. So this is something which is going to serve to everyone in the market as fuel and the foundation for innovation going forward, both for the big ones, but more basically for the small ones. This is the way how the 5G should make the best everything of the available potential in the countries in any possible way.
To cover both sides, big business and small.
Exactly.
Okay, so in the final question, Leslie, Silicon Valley approach to development of the technology versus the rest of the world in terms of can we compare? Not us in Croatia, or maybe yes, but Europe mostly.
Well, I've been in the telecommunications industry for many years, but I only got to Silicon Valley a few years ago. And so the biggest difference that I saw between kind of traditional telecommunications industry thinking and Silicon Valley thinking is in Silicon Valley, the mantra, well, there's an understanding that in order to be successful, failure does happen, right? And if you want to try something new, it might not work. And so there is no failure, only learning thinking is the Silicon Valley approach, as opposed to the telecommunications approach, which is much more, oh, that project failed, okay, you're fired, and so is everybody else who was on the team. Instead, in Silicon Valley, they take the people who worked on that project and said, all right, what did you learn from it? And now let's try again, coming at it from this other angle, using the same people, because now these are the people who are smart because they went through the experience the first time.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. And then also just the idea of not placing just one bet, thinking of yourself more as a gardener, planting 5 very different seeds, giving them all water, giving them all, fertilizer, and then one of them may grow more than the others, and at that point you say, okay, now this is the one we're going to invest in, these other ones, all right, we're going to rip them out and throw away, but we didn't just say, we're not going to plant any seeds until you can show us and prove to us the return on investment that we're going to get from this seed, because we're not going to invest unless you can prove this innovation is going to be successful. You can't do that ahead of time. So in telco, we focus a little too much on ROI ahead of time, and that keeps us from innovating.
Yeah, but you know what? While you were talking, Boris and Marijana were like, no, Croatian Telecom is not like that. No.
Oh, totally not.
No,
totally.
We have a little bit different situation, because we are telco company, but also part of ICT world, especially in Croatia, but also in the Europe footprint. So we are somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
Wanna be.
Exactly. So, and nothing great ever happened from, all the biggest innovations happened after second, third, or 15th time.
Exactly. Playing
failure.
it safe.
Yes.
You don't win big by always doing the same things, and by demanding, I'm not going to invest, or I'm not going to have somebody in my company work on this innovation unless they can prove to me it's going to make $1 million for me in the next 6 months. I'm sorry, you're not going to get anywhere with that.
We started off with Leslie being in VR. Fitness, you said. I need to ask, of course, Boris and Marijana, do you have any experience with VR, AR, Metaverse, or do you have...
I'm a little bit shame, but I don't have.
No, nothing yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Boris?
Absolutely. My kids are in Fortnite things, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
So each weekend we are having, gaming sessions. So
and that's also a version of the metaverse.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
is.
Yeah, my
No,
sons
this
are
is
Fortnite
reality.
as well.
I'm also in Fortnite, but this is reality.
Small steps.
Actually, you notice I never. I make a very careful distinction. I say digital reality and physical reality. I don't say the real world because they are both real. Yes, they are both real.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
okay.
you need to hang out in virtual reality headsets and you go, okay, that's real.
So change the way of thinking. So I have absolutely no experience, but after you said that you've been cycling Chile, right?
Yes.
Right
yes,
now,
yes,
so
yes.
I'm gonna buy a bike in VR. So if you see me on the road, just wave and move on because I'm not gonna.
I'll try fitness.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. So thank you very much for doing this, to being a part of this meetup. Good luck with everything. Good luck with 5G. And hopefully, Leslie, you're going to be back in Croatia to talk some more about what you and what the technology and especially Hrvatski Telekom can do more for all of us using 5G in Croatia. So, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Hvala vam svima što ste gledali. Do nekog sljedećeg puta. Pozdravljamo vas. Bok!